All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining our immigration updates and Q&A session today. My name is Asuka Nakamura, and I'm one of the International Student Advisors, Immigration Specialist here at SFU. Our session today will be focused on the immigration updates that have recently been released by Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. Before going over the agenda, I would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that SFU is located on unceded Coast Salish territory, the traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, and Kazi nations. And these are the topics that I will cover in my presentation today. I will start off with the recent updates on the temporary lifting of off-campus work hour limit, which many of you are interested in learning more about. I will also talk about the temporary exemption of the immigration medical exam, or IME, and who might be qualified for this exemption. The second part of the session will be requirements for traveling to Canada that I would like you to keep in mind if you are entering Canada. And lastly, I will talk about the important information and deadlines to opt out for our medical insurance plans. After the presentation, we will have some time to answer your Q&A. From the questions submitted in advance, I noticed that some of you were asking about permanent residence. Please note that we will not be addressing the topic of permanent residence in this presentation, as we have limited expertise on permanent residence. As the topic of permanent residence can be quite complex, you might benefit from speaking to an immigration consultant or immigration lawyer who specializes in these types of applications. And please note that this session will cover topics around temporary residence, and we might not be able to answer case-specific questions. If you'd like to talk to an international student advisor one-on-one regarding your case, please contact us to book an appointment. Finally, I would also like to draw your attention to the disclaimer on each of my slides. As we slowly transition out of the COVID-19 pandemic, immigration policy still continues to change rapidly and without notice. I would like to remind you all that the information that we're sharing today is current as of today, December 1st, 2022. All right, I will jump right into the immigration updates now. Since many students are interested in learning about the new temporary policy on the off-campus work hours, I would like to remind you all about the eligibility requirements for off-campus work. As a study permit holder, you may be able to work off campus if you meet all of these requirements listed here. Normally, those who meet the requirements to work off campus are restricted to up to 20 hours per week of off-campus work, unless it is a regularly scheduled break. I will quickly go through the list here. So you have a valid study permit with work authorization, that would be the first one. And then you're enrolled full-time, except in the final term. You are enrolled in a program that is at least 6 months long and leads to a degree, diploma, or certificate. And you have a social insurance number. Please note that if you don't meet even one of these requirements, then you will not be able to work off campus at all during the academic terms. You may work full-time during regularly scheduled breaks, such as breaks between full-time terms, reading week, and the summer term for undergraduate students. In order for an undergraduate student to work full-time in the summer term, the student must be enrolled full-time in a term immediately before and after that term. On October 7th, 2022, Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada, or IRCC, made an announcement on the temporary lifting of the 20-hour per week limit on the number of hours that eligible international students are allowed to work off campus during academic terms. Since this new temporary measure does not apply to all students, you need to carefully assess whether you're eligible for this temporary measure. From November 15th, 2022 until December 31st, 2023, you can work more than 20 hours per week off campus while class is in session if you meet these requirements listed here. So first of all, you must meet all of the regular off-campus work eligibility criteria that I just mentioned earlier. And IRCC received your study permit application, which can be your initial study permit or extended study permit on or before October 7th, 2022. To confirm the date that IRCC received your study permit application, you can check the receipt of confirmation that you received from IRCC after you submitted your study permit application. And whether you meet the requirements to work more than 20 hours off campus depends on your eligibility and individual circumstances. So let's look at the flowcharts that I created, and I hope I can make the eligibility requirements a little easier to understand. So this is the flowchart that applies to those of you who currently hold your very first study permit and have not applied to a study permit extension yet. As you can see, the important information to know is the date your study permit application was received by IRCC. If your first study permit application was received by IRCC on or before October 7th, then you may work more than 20 hours per week until December 31st, 2023, which is the date this temporary measure will end, or the expiry date of your study permit, so whichever date comes first. If your first study permit application was received by IRCC after October 7th, then you can work only up to 20 hours per week. It gets a little more complicated if you have recently applied or will be applying for a study permit extension. So let's look at the other flowchart that applies to those of you who have submitted or will be submitting an application for a study permit extension. As you all know, if your study permit expires before the end of your program of study, you must extend your study permit. If you submitted your study permit extension application on or before October 7th, then under that extended study permit, you can work more than 20 hours per week until December 31st, 2023, or until the expiry date on your extended study permit, whichever comes first. If you submitted your study permit extension application after October 7th, then under the extended study permit, then you want to check the date of your current study permit. If your current study permit has already expired, then you can work only up to 20 hours per week. If your current study permit expires before December 31st, 2023, then you can work more than 20 hours per week until the expiry date of your current study permit, even after you receive your extended study permit. So if you fall under this category, you must reduce your work hours to 20 hours per week after the expiry date of your current study permit. And lastly, if your current study permit expires after December 31st, then you can work more than 20 hours per week until December 31st, 2023. I hope these flowcharts were helpful in assessing your off-campus work eligibility, but we also have a web page dedicated to this temporary lifting on off-campus work hours. So please visit the news and update page on our SFU ISS website. Let's move on to the recent updates on the immigration medical exam exemptions. On October 12th, IRCC announced a temporary public policy that exempts certain in Canada foreign nationals from submitting an immigration medical examination, or IME, as part of their application when their previous IME has expired. Under normal circumstances, you will be required to undergo an IME if you have been living outside Canada in a designated country for more than 6 months within the past 12 months prior to your application, or if you intend to work in a job that will bring you into close contact with people such as workers in healthcare settings, primary or secondary schools, or childcare facilities. So usually the IME result is only valid for 12 months, and if your previous IME is expired, you might need to submit a new IME result with your temporary resident application. However, this new temporary policy exempts certain applicants from submitting the IME again if they meet certain requirements. So you might be exempt from completing another IME if you meet all of these conditions listed here. You applied or are applying for either permanent residence or temporary residence within Canada. So for example, study permit, work permit, temporary resident visa, visitor record, so on. And you already live in Canada. You completed your previous IME on or after October 6, 2017. And IRCC found your previous medical exam to indicate a low risk or no risk to public health or public safety. Please note that applicants who are not eligible under this temporary public policy are required to undergo an IME as per usual health screening procedures. And IRCC will contact you to discuss next steps if you're not eligible for this exemption. If you meet the eligibility and are submitting your application, we recommend that you attach a brief explanation letter explaining that you are eligible for this exemption. You will need to include the IME or UMI number from your previous medical exam. IME number is an 8-digit number that is assigned to a specific IME. And if you have completed an IME before, you will be able to find your IME number through the IRCC online portal. And UMI number is a unique medical identifier number that you will receive during an upfront medical exam. The temporary public policy will remain in effect until October 6, 2024. And if you'd like to know more about this exemption, please visit the IRCC's webpage, Medical Exams for Visitors, Students, and Workers. And let's talk about the most recent updates on travel restrictions and what to keep in mind when traveling to Canada. With regards to entry to Canada, as of October 1st, 2022, all COVID-19 border requirements were removed for anyone entering Canada. This includes vaccination, mandatory use of ArriveCAN app, testing, quarantine, and isolation requirements. Use of ArriveCAN is now optional, and if you are flying into Toronto, Vancouver, Winnipeg, Halifax, or Montreal international airports, you can still use ArriveCAN to complete the advanced CBSA declaration to save time during your entry at the border. All travelers are encouraged to wear masks during all travel and to avoid travel if they have symptoms of COVID-19. If you will be transitioning through another country on your way to Canada, please make sure to check the entry requirements for that country, as there might be still some border measures in place. And when you're traveling, please also ensure that you are carrying your passport, travel documents, which is your temporary resident visa or ETA if you're required, and your study permit or study permit approval. We also recommend that you carry your SFU letter of acceptance, which is sometimes referred to an offer letter or admission letter, and an SFU confirmation of enrollment letter or COE letter, which you can download on your GoSFU account. For those of you whose study permit application was approved outside Canada, your study permit will be issued upon entering Canada. Previously, an ESTA, or Electronic System for Travel Authorization, was required for visa waiver program participants traveling to the United States by air or sea. However, as of October 1st, all visa waiver program travelers are required to obtain an ESTA before traveling to the US via land crossing. There is also a new online process to apply for I-94, which is a custom and border protection form, on a website or using an app. For more information about traveling to the US, please visit the International Visitors page on the US Customs and Border Protection's website. Since there was a few questions about the medical insurance in Canada, I will talk briefly about the medical insurance for SFU students and the important deadlines. For those of you who are located here in British Columbia, the BC Medical Services Plan, or BCMSP, has extended its temporary coverage to students who are holding maintained status in Canada while waiting for a study permit extension. If you meet the eligibility requirements, you can contact BCMSP through the MSP website to request the extension of your coverage. For the GuardMe SFU plan, international students are automatically enrolled for their first term. If the spring 2023 term is your first term, your coverage will begin on January 1st, 2023, and end on April 30th, 2023. If you apply for BC MSP right after arriving in BC in early January, it will be effective towards the end of your semester, and you may have an overlap period of BC MSP and GuardMe coverage. If you already have a valid MSP coverage and you have not used the GuardMe insurance, you may opt out fully or partially by the deadline indicated here. For students who are enrolled in the secondary medical insurance, which is the SFSS or GSS, Extended Health and Dental Plan, your current coverage is valid until August 31st, 2023. For students who will start in spring 2023, the change of coverage period for SFSS or GSS insurance plan is from January 3rd to January 20th, 2023. If you need some advice on how to arrange your medical insurance coverage, please contact us directly about your coverage options. And since we talked about the off-campus work earlier, I would like to let you know about the Sync Clinic that is taking place at the SFU Burnaby campus on Friday, January 6th. If you're interested in applying for a SIN, there is a great opportunity for you to meet Service Canada officers on campus who can assist you with your SIN application. You will have to book an appointment, and you can do so by scanning the QR code, which will take you to the registration page. And please make sure that you will have the required original documents with you when you arrive there. I would also like to let you know that our ISS office is hosting a year-end celebration dinner next Friday on December 9th. This formal dinner is for students and their family members to enjoy an evening of delicious food and dancing to celebrate the end of 2022. The tickets are limited, so if you're interested, please register early. And it will be taking place on the SFU Vancouver campus, Legal Building. You can find more information on our Eventbrite page if you're interested. All right, it's almost the end of the presentation. Thank you so much, everyone, for your attention. If you're looking to connect with an international student advisor, you can reach us in a number of ways. We offer advising using in-person and virtual methods, including email, phone, live chat, and drop-in, or booked appointments, which we conduct via Zoom or in person, depending on your preference. Our website is also a great resource and a place where you can find answers to many common questions. We have a number of instruction guides and resources for study permits, work permits, visas, medical insurance, enrollment requirements, and lots more. I included a barcode there, which you can scan with your phone and access our advising services page. Thank you so much again for attending this session. I will be ending the recording now, and we will move on to the Q&A session.